Tonight, for my curiosity and your entertainment, we are sleeping at Lumley Castle. Now, this place is not just a hotel, it is a 14th century fortress raised by a man later executed for treason. And this place is said to have a murdered bride who wanders the corridors in the night. And there are stories of international cricket players that have checked in and had to flee before the morning is even here. And somehow I thought it was a good idea to stay here. So let's see. Rising above the River Wear in County Durham, just 7 miles south of Newcastle, Lumley Castle has watched over this landscape for more than 600 years. Its walls were raised in the 1300s by Sir Ralph Lumley, a soldier, a nobleman, and a conspirator who paid for his ambition with his life. The castle he built survived him, and so did the stories whispered inside it. Over the centuries, Lumley began collecting legends, tales of a murdered bride rising from a well, reports of strange figures drifting along stone corridors, the laughter of unseen children echoing through the top floors, and, in more recent years, the uneasy footsteps of international sportsmen who checked in and couldn't wait to leave. And today, this place of plots and phantoms has become a luxury hotel, still owned by the Earl of Scarborough, where anyone can stay the night, if they're brave enough. Tonight, it's our turn. Hello friends and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, I'm Claire, this is the Wanderlust way. First off, let me say a huge thank you to everybody that supports the channel by liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, becoming members and sending super thanks, because honestly everything that you do helps this little corner of the internet to grow. It allows me to continue on with adventures like this and sharing the stories at the places that I find with you. So today we've got a bit of a special episode. We are here, not too far from Newcastle, to stay at Lumley Castle, which is a hotel, but it was also once a 14th century fortress, so there's lots of history here. And the reason this caught my attention is because there are loads of haunted historic castles and hotels throughout the UK, but this one has attracted the international headlines on the cricket scene because there are cricketers that have stayed here and they've had to check out early because of the paranormal experiences that they have encountered. So I thought that might be quite interesting to take a look at that and see what's been going on here and share that with you guys. So if you're ready for, I know we've done videos before at other haunted locations, we've done, well, quite a few on the channel, but we've never actually slept overnight before, so I thought this one might be a little bit special. So if you're ready for a spooky wander, hopefully asleep, then that's enough waffle, let's wander. Lumley Castle is full of those tiny details that remind you you're standing somewhere old. Really old. Thick walls you could practically disappear into, strange little alcoves that don't seem to lead anywhere, and windows set so deep you could climb inside them. Even the carpets and the tapestries feel like they've absorbed centuries of footsteps. Inside the main building, every turn comes with a new creak, a cold patch of air, or a flicker of candlelight. It doesn't feel staged, it feels lived in, worn, mysterious. Okay, so we are now checked in. We've got one of the castle twin rooms. We've picked up our key. We are room 58. And just these first few moments of checking in and getting a feel of the place, it's like stepping out of 2025 and straight into the 14th century. Honestly, I mean, the floors are creaky. There's lots of beautiful art and statues, and there's just a lot going on here. Now, I will obviously show you more as this video goes on, but for now, first impressions are, it's actually pretty impressive. Okay, so are you ready for a room tour? Come through. So as I said, I have booked a castle twin room. Some of the rooms, they aren't always inside the actual castle itself, but obviously for this video we wanted to be inside, and it's full of history in here. So I'll show you the bathroom first, because even this is a little bit quirky. So it's for 2 people. Me and my son are here this evening, and we've got a bath over the shower. Got some beautiful features in there. There's hand wash, there's body wash, there's shampoo. Looks like a decent shower, but I will report in the morning. Right, so let's go through back to the bedroom. So there's twin beds, and they do feel, two single beds, do feel actually quite comfortable. The decor, again, really historic. There's no like swishy swanky modern style going on here. I love that they've kept it original, and got beautiful mirrors on the floor. The ceilings are super high. And again, we've got some beautiful tapestries and things on the wall. I mean, this one, I don't know what's going on here, but it looks like a deer's been cut in half, has it? And then there's a priest. And the window, you have to step up to the window. But we've not got a bad view, we've got trees. And we've got tea, coffee, and all that jazz. And we've got a telly. So if things get really scary in the night, we can just pop the telly on.
Rooms at Lumley come in all shapes and sizes. Some are tucked away in the courtyard buildings outside, others are inside the castle walls themselves, like this one. And those are the ones with the stories, the ones that creak at night, where guests swear they've heard footsteps, whispers, or tapping. Even the simpler rooms have their own atmosphere. You don't need a haunted suite to feel the age of this place.
So we've already just checked in, and Jack is checking out all the little corners and the cupboards just to make sure there are no ghosts already lurking. But this is it. This is the room we are in, and this is tonight's adventure, and it starts right here.
Outside these walls is a castle full of stories, treason, tragedy, and a ghost said to rise from a well. And tonight, we'll be wandering deeper into all of it.
Before we even start talking about ghosts or anything like that, first let's look at the history about the man who built this castle in the first place, because the story of that on its own is interesting without any stories of the paranormal.
Lumley Castle was born out of ambition and ended in betrayal. In the late 1300s, Sir Ralph Lumley returned from military campaigns in Scotland with enough wealth and influence to transform his family manor into a fortress. What rose on this hillside was a bold quadrangular castle, high stone towers at each corner, thick defensive walls, and a central courtyard that would have echoed with horses, guards, and clattering armour. It was a statement, a declaration of power, and perhaps of danger. Because Sir Ralph Lumley was not a man who played it safe. As England shifted between monarchs, factions and rebellions, he threw his weight behind the wrong cause at the worst possible time. In 1400, Ralph Lumley joined what became known as the Epiphany Rising, a plot to assassinate King Henry IV and restore the deposed Richard II to the throne. It was a bold plan, whispered behind locked doors, fuelled by anger and loyalty to a fallen king. But it failed spectacularly. The conspirators were betrayed, rounded up and dragged before Henry IV's forces. And Ralph Lumley, the man who built this castle, paid the ultimate price. Some chronicles say he was beheaded, the punishment reserved for noble traitors. Others suggest the harsher fate that often followed treason, a sentence designed not just to kill, but to send a message. Whichever version is true, one thing is certain: he never came home. His lands were seized, his titles stripped, and Lumley Castle, this mighty statement of his ambition, stood waiting in the silence that followed his execution. But the story didn't end there. Years later, the Lumley family clawed back their inheritance through Ralph's grandson. The castle evolved again in the 1500s under John, the first Baron Lumley, a book-loving Renaissance figure who remodelled its interiors, adding grand fireplaces and ornate carvings, trying to turn a wounded fortress into a place of culture and sophistication. Centuries layered themselves into these walls: medieval stone, Tudor windows, Georgian arches, Victorian repairs, and 20th century modernisation, all resting on foundations built by a man who met a traitor's death.
And maybe that's why some say this castle doesn't feel like the way it should, because let's face it, it wasn't born out of peace. It was born out of ambition, betrayal, conflict, and ultimately a life cut short. But of course the history doesn't stop there, because Lumley Castle has attracted lots of interesting characters over the course of history, including one king in particular.
In 1603, as Queen Elizabeth I's long reign came to an end, the English crown passed to her cousin, James VI of Scotland, who became James I of England. On his grand journey south to claim his new kingdom, James stopped here at Lumley Castle. The castle prepared its finest chambers, its grandest decorations, and its most impressive views for the royal entourage. The old chapel was later renamed the King James Suite in memory of that visit. It was a moment of great prestige for the Lumley family, a chance to host the most powerful man in Britain as he crossed the border to seize the English throne. But James I wasn't just any monarch. He carried with him obsessions and fears that would leave a permanent mark on British history.
So James I, he's a little bit of a complicated character for me personally. He makes me feel a little bit uneasy. Now, I know he did obviously help unite the crowns of England and Scotland. He also gave us the King James Bible, for example. But he also wrote another book, didn't he? And that was Demonology. Now, when a king writes a book like that, and if you don't know, he was obsessed with witchcraft and the hunt and persecution of witches, and he wrote Demonology as a little bit of a guide to witch hunting. And that book spread a lot of fear amongst the people, and it ultimately resulted in the suffering and the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands, of people. So whenever a place or a story has a connection to James I, for me personally, I automatically think of that, and it makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable and uneasy. What about you? Anybody else feel like that?
James travelled through this region at a time when fear of witchcraft was growing. And Lumley Castle, with its long corridors and medieval shadows, would have been the perfect backdrop for a monarch who saw the world through the lens of demons, omens, and the supernatural. His brief visit left no recorded ghosts, but his presence, his writings, and the paranoia he encouraged, well, they linger in history like an echo. And in a place already built on treason, death, and legend, that echo is part of the atmosphere you might feel the moment you step inside.
So now we need to talk about the one ghost that made this castle famous, because if there's one that obviously people keep talking about, then it is hers, Lily of Lumley.
Her name was Lily of Lumley, or at least that's the name the legend gives her. The story goes that Lily was the first wife of Sir Ralph Lumley, the same Sir Ralph who built this fortress and later died as a traitor. Lily, according to the old tales, refused to renounce her Protestant faith in an age when religious loyalties could be fatal. 2 priests were sent to correct her. Instead, they dragged her through the castle grounds and threw her into a deep well. They told Lord Lumley that Lily had joined a convent. But the truth, if the legend is to be believed, was far more sinister, and from that moment on her spirit rose from the water. A murdered bride dripping with grief and fury, wandering the corridors of the castle she never escaped in life.
There's lots of little rooms that are peeping off this castle, and they're quite interesting to find. But one here, which is in between the restaurant, the bar, that's that way, and the reception is that way, you'll come across this. Now, the sign will tell you what it is. Take a peek and you might see our resident ghost, the Lady of Lumley. And down here we have the well. Now, this is the well that people say those priests threw Lily of Lumley into, and this is the well that she is said to rise from in the night, soaking wet, to appear at the bottom of people's beds, in the corridors, basically frighten them a little bit.
Now, historically, there is no solid record of a Lily in the Lumley family. Sir Ralph's real wife was Eleanor Neville. But legends tend to stick around for a reason, and this one has clung to the castle for centuries. From servants' tales to local folklore, from ghost tours to modern guests who refuse to sleep without a light on, Lily's story is woven into the fabric of Lumley Castle. And many people, including some staff, believe she's still here.
And honestly, even if that name doesn't appear in the family tree, that for me doesn't really mean anything, because history has a way of rewriting its stories and anything can come out of it. It may be legend, yes, but there may be more to it as well.
Whether Lily was real or imagined, whether her story was born from local superstition or forgotten tragedy, her legend is now part of the castle's identity. A ghost bride walking the corridors of a fortress built on treason. And people come from all over the world, hoping, or not hoping, to meet her. But what do you think? Do you believe she could have been real, but simply hidden from the historical documents? Or do you think it's a fanciful tale born from a need to perhaps scare people?
So Lily might be the headline act here, but she's not the only ghost people talk about, because when you start digging into the stories, there's more than one thing that goes bump in the night.
Lily may be the castle's most famous ghost, but she's far from alone. Over the years, staff, guests, ghost hunters, even people stopping here for a wedding or a meal have reported strange encounters in every corner of Lumley. There's the mischievous spirit they call Black Jack, a poltergeist known for moving objects, tugging at bags and coats, and knocking glasses off tables in the bar. People have seen shadows dart across rooms when no one else is inside, or watched items shift by themselves, just a fraction, as though nudged by an invisible hand. Then there are the children. Many guests swear they've heard laughter or crying from the top floor, particularly late at night. But when staff go to check, those rooms are empty. No families staying, no children anywhere near that part of the castle. In the library bar, once the castle's grand Georgian library, there's a figure people spot sitting in the corner, a hunched man, still as stone, watching. When they look again, he's gone. Lights flicker for no reason, cold patches appear in warm rooms, footsteps echo behind you in empty corridors. It's never dramatic, never theatrical, just small, unnerving moments that make you doubt what you're seeing.
And that's the thing with the stories at Lumley, because they are actually quite subtle. They're not like the usual jump scare sort of horror ghost stories that you might have heard on some of my other videos. But they're the sort of things where things happen and people maybe question themselves and then think, hang on a minute, what was that?
Between the 71 bedrooms, the 4-star rating and the whole sleeping in a 14th century fortress thing, Lumley Castle sounds like a pretty tempting place for anyone to stay. And it is, but for international cricketers there's an extra bonus. The castle is practically next door to the Durham County Cricket Ground, which means teams don't just stay here for the luxury, they stay because it's the most convenient base for a tour. So after some of the stories that I have heard about what's happened at Lumley Castle to especially some of the cricketers, I have decided to bring my favourite pyjamas, or my best pair, just in case, because I've heard stories of people having to run away from their bedroom in the middle of the night in just their pants, and we do not want that happening. Because once the sun goes down at Lumley Castle, something strange seems to happen, even to the toughest, most disciplined athletes in the world. These aren't people who scare easily, they're used to pressure, travel, unfamiliar hotels and roaring crowds. Yet time and time again, players have checked in here feeling calm and confident, and ended the night completely unsettled. It started with whispers, a few uneasy comments from visiting squads. Then the stories began to stack up. Tales of taps running with no water turned on, lights flickering to life in the middle of the night, footsteps echoing along empty corridors, and the feeling, described again and again, of someone standing just behind you. Separately, the stories were just odd. Together, they became a pattern. And that's when the rumours began, that Lumley Castle wasn't just a convenient hotel for a cricket tour, it was a place that even hardened professionals struggled to sleep in. The first major incident came in the year 2000, when the West Indies team checked in during their England tour. Players later admitted they felt uneasy the moment they arrived, watched, unsettled, as though something in the castle didn't want them there. Shadows where there shouldn't be shadows, footsteps in empty corridors, sudden cold patches that cut straight through the air. By dawn, several of them had packed up their bags and refused to stay a second night. They left Lumley Castle behind before the sun was even up. A few years later, during the 2005 Ashes, it was Australia's turn. What should have been a relaxing night in a 14th century castle quickly became something else entirely. Lights flickered on without warning, taps ran in the bathroom again when no one was near them. Shapes moved at the edges of vision, just enough to make the hair on your arms stand up. One young Australian cricketer was so terrified by what he saw that he bolted out of his room in the middle of the night, wearing nothing but his underwear, banging on a teammate's door and begging to sleep on their floor. The story became so well known, it was even retold in Ian Botham's book, Beefy's Cricket Tales, where he mentions that certain touring sides simply could not cope with a night at Lumley. And then there's Sourav Ganguly, a former captain of India, whose story is perhaps the most famous of them all. In his own autobiography, he describes lying awake as the taps in his bathroom suddenly turned on, the sound of water gushing in an empty room. When he got up to check, the handles weren't even moving, nothing was running. It happened again and again, until finally, overwhelmed and unnerved, he grabbed his things and fled the room entirely. He never slept there again, and he admitted all of this in print. These aren't ghost hunters or thrill seekers sharing these stories. They're some of the toughest sportsmen in the world, people with nerves of steel and years of pressure behind them. And yet here, in this castle, something got under their skin. So that's enough ghost stories and cricketers in their pants for now. I think if we're going to survive a night in this hotel, then it is definitely going to be worth checking out the restaurant and having this experience on a full stomach. So we're going to go downstairs. They have a library bar, which I believe this is all in the medieval part of the building. Library bar, and then the night restaurant, which I've heard very good things about this. There's lots of weddings and events that take place here. Now, we've come on a Monday evening. It's obviously going to be a lot cheaper. If you want to come for yourself, then that's the sort of time to do it. We got a really good deal, actually. I think it was £95 for both of us. So, yeah, I'm waffling again. Library bar, nice restaurant. Let's wander. So they do signature cocktails, and I've just spotted they do one called the Lady Lily. Plymouth Gin. Kamut, 6-year-old Calvados, lemon juice, grenadine and egg white. £22 if you want to try that.
Francis doing sport in engineering at college. He's only 16 and he's got a, I think his passion to it was in sports like creativity.
Okay, so now before we settle down for the evening, I think it's probably about the right time for a few bedtime tales, shall we say. The majority of the rooms here at this hotel are relatively quiet, but others are not. People have reported they've been laying in their bed when the mattress has dipped and there's nobody else in the room. Along with the dipping of the mattress, they have felt a presence lying next to them in the bed, and this has been very cold. And alongside this, they have had breathing in their ear while they've been trying to sleep when there's again been nobody there. So not very pleasant whatsoever. What I haven't told you yet is about what happens in the Queen Anne room. Now the Queen Anne room is one of the grandest, one of the nicest, one of the poshest hotel suites that they have here. But it's not just the people that check in that like that particular room, because this is the room many say is haunted by a lady. Perhaps it is Lily of Lumley, who knows? What guests are saying is that when they wake up in the night, they look to the bottom of their bed and they see her standing there. Now, she disappears as soon as they make eye contact with her. And there is one ghost story in particular that is one of my favourites, and it is about a lady that had checked into this hotel, and during the night she found it difficult to sleep and she went to the window. And when she went to the window, she looked out onto the lawns and she saw ghostly white figures walking through the grass. And as soon as she sort of realised what was happening and got her bearings and got herself together, they disappeared as well. Right then, so I think we're ready. I've got my favourite jimmies on, brushed my teeth. I am ready now for a night's sleep, hopefully. Jack, you did think you heard some woman screaming, didn't you, at one point? That was a bit weird. But we're going, I do try and be a little bit sceptical. Obviously, I do listen to people's stories and I don't discredit people's experiences. Everybody has their own experiences. But I am coming in with an open mind. We'll see what happens. If anything happens, I will, of course, report this to you in the morning. I would like to think that I'll get a good night's sleep because I've got a really busy day tomorrow. But we will see. Nights in old buildings like this always seem to linger long and slow. The moment the lights go out, your senses can't help but sharpen, listening for anything that doesn't quite belong. Every creak in the floorboard, every distant hoot from an owl, every rattle on the wind against the glass feels just a little bit more deliberate, a little bit more alive. I lie there for what feels like an eternity before my eyes begin to grow heavy, and that's when the footsteps came. A slow tread along the corridor outside our door. Jack rolled over and he whispered, "Did you hear that?" I reassure him it'll just be somebody returning to their room, though even as I say it, the phone screen glows with the time. 3 a.m, the witching hour. I question my own logic, tell myself not to be so ridiculous, and wait to hear if the steps return. But they don't. Sleep comes in restless patches throughout the night. Every so often I open an eye and peer across the room into the darkened abyss, towards that window, half expecting, ridiculous as it sounds, to find somebody dripping, silent apparition staring back at me. There's nothing there, and I roll over with my face to the wall, hoping for calm. The floors sigh, the pipes rattle softly, the castle whispers to itself, until a new sensation drags me from my sleep. This time, an intense, unnatural heat rising from beneath my body. The room is cold, yet I feel as though I'm lying on embers. For a long moment I debate the childhood superstition that has clung to me for years, that letting even a single foot stray from beneath the duvet might invite something unseen to tug at my toe. But the heat becomes unbearable and eventually I cave, kicking the covers loose long enough for cool air to settle around me. The warmth fades and sleep returns. The next time I wake, it's to the soft sound of Fleetwood Mac drifting from my phone. It's the morning alarm. A strangely welcome reminder that we've made it through the night unscathed. We stretch, rub our eyes and peer out of that window. No strange figures lingering on the grass, no taps mysteriously running, and no sign that the poltergeist they call Black Jack has nudged so much as a teaspoon out of place. Everything sits exactly where we left it. Even after a night here, I still can't quite decide whether I believe Lumley Castle to be truly haunted, but I can say this, it certainly has the right temperament for it. Those long, echoing corridors with their sudden cold spots, the low lighting that throws shadows into the corners where your eyes don't really want to look, the creaks and cracks that move through the building like an old memory shifting in its sleep. There's something about this place that makes the imagination sit up a little straighter. Last night, during a curious wander, we thought we heard a scream along the top floor, a sharp sound that came from nowhere and stopped just as suddenly. In the morning, of course, we met the resident castle cat, and I'm choosing to believe the noise came from them rather than anything otherworldly, but still, there's always that sliver of doubt, isn't there? And that seems to be the thing about Lumley. It hasn't given us anything concrete tonight, but it didn't let us fully relax either. Whether it's spirits, stories, or simply the weight of history pressing in from all sides, this castle knows how to get under your skin, gently, quietly, and just enough to make you wonder. If you're curious by nature, or if you've ever wanted to sleep somewhere with centuries of life and whisperings woven into its walls, well, Lumley Castle is absolutely worth a visit. And if you have stayed here, or you've experienced something strange in these corridors, do let us know in the comments because I love to hear your stories. I can only give you my experience from one night. I'm sure there's lots more layers to this story. Maybe together we'll work out whether Lumley Castle's ghosts are real, or whether the fear of the unknown is the most haunting thing of all.
So that's it, we have thankfully survived the night. There were a few moments where it felt a little bit creepy, but I think that's the history of this place, and it is a beautiful hotel to stay in. So thank you everybody for joining me on this slightly spooky historical wander. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do let me know in the comments what you thought, and also let me know if you've ever stayed at this place or whether you might like to stay in the future, and whether you've heard the stories from the cricketers about this place in the first place. Okay, so have an amazing week everybody. I've been Claire, this has been The Wanderlust Way. Stay safe, stay curious, and don't have nightmares.